Netting Professionals is proud to be the official netting partner of the Cape Cod League and the New England Collegiate Baseball League. Netting Professionals is in the sports business of improving athletic programs one facility at a time. Netting Professionals designs, fabricates, and installs custom netting, wall padding, windscreen, batting practice equipment, and much more for high schools, colleges, commercial facilities, and stadiums throughout the United States, while providing high-quality products and great service to numerous baseball programs throughout the New England area. To learn more and to speak to a Netting Professionals representative today, visit them at nettingpros.com. Remember, when it comes to netting, it's Netting Professionals. Welcome to the Base Path Podcast, brought to you by New England Baseball Journal. I'm your host, Dan Guttenplan. Today's guests are assistant coaches on the Salisbury School coaching staff. Both were coaches under Kevin Huber, who died unexpectedly in early December. So today we're going to talk about his legacy as a coach. We're going to honor him as much as we can. And then we are going to talk about where the program goes from here as well. James Simboli and Dylan Sanchez are both with us. James and Dylan, thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you guys for having us.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
Well, James, I'll start with you. We talked a little bit last week, and you said that there was going to be a memorial service last night. What was that like? What was that experience like?
It was a wonderful service, and certainly all that were involved with putting this together, from the setup in our gymnasium to bulletin boards with pictures of Kevin, to programs being made. There are countless people that were involved. So everyone that was a part of it did a wonderful job in setting it up. And I tell you what, to see the outpouring of love from family of Kevin's to friends of Kevin's to past players, current players. It was really, I guess, impressive is the best way to put it. Just his ability to connect, the touch that he had on his players. It was really powerful.
And Dylan, you had both experiences as a former player of his, and then also as a assistant coach on his staff. When did your relationship with Kevin start, and what kind of were the initial impressions? What led you to Salisbury?
Yeah. So I met him for the first time actually my sophomore year, when he was coming to visit Salisbury to figure out if this was the place he was gonna come and coach at from Yale. So I was actually the first person he met on campus. He tells that story to a bunch of recruits all the time. But I met him then, obviously just kind of a quick interaction. And then, when he came in as a coach for my junior year, he really leaned on me to kind of show him the ropes. I was, I think, the only guy on the team that had been on the team for the past 3 years. So he really leaned on me to kind of guide him in areas, outside of baseball, more so kind of school rules and how things go. And he really, that relationship just grew from that kind of an initial contact early on. And what really brought me to Salisbury was the baseball program. Of course, before Huber, but I did have a friend on the team, George Hewitt. I believe his brother Anthony Hewitt graduated from Salisbury as well. So that Brooklyn, New York connection is kind of what brought me here. And I'm really glad I was able to kind of carry a legacy a little bit with Coach Huber when he first got here.
And what were your initial impressions of him in terms of like his personality and his coaching style?
Yeah, well, so I had the pleasure of having him also as a dean, as a student. So my first impression of him was he was pretty mean, and pretty hardcore and tough. But it took me just a few months to realize that was him. That was his genuine self. That's who he was as a coach, as a person. And it was really, although it might have been mean, or I might have taken it as mean, as a high school student player, it was just honesty and love and genuine care for me as a person and as a player. And so, that general impression of him being kind of a mean guy kind of rolled over pretty quickly, once I got to know him a little bit more.
James, I saw you laughing when you heard that his initial impression was mean. Was that consistent with the way you felt about it? Like, when did you guys meet?
So I actually met Kevin when he came up to interview the spring prior to, I guess it would have been the spring of 16. I think the fall of 16 was his first year here. And I met him because he actually, just the way the housing carousel works on campus, he was going to be moving into the house that I was living in because I was going to be, moving to another place. But great guy, but he, I think you heard this in speeches yesterday, and his, from friends growing up to, coaches that he worked with in the past. It's so funny just thinking about it. Is nobody cared more deeply for his players, and nobody wanted, whether it was colleagues, whether it was players, fellow coaches, his family, like Kevin wanted nothing more than for the people he worked with to succeed. But Kevin's approach was, he was a straight shooter, and he was going to tell you. And if you weren't doing something correctly or up to, I'd say yes, his standards, but what he believed were your standards, he was going to let you hear it. And maybe it was, a joke was always, you didn't get a bunt down. If you thought you were too cool to put away the pitching machine in practice or something like that. He was a team guy. And with that said, though, kind of to what Dylan was saying, like he was going to be the first guy there when you came off the field, maybe following an error or maybe following a strikeout or whatever it was, a good, bad play. He was going to be the first one there, right? In his way to be like, I got you. I support you. And we've all done it. Nobody's perfect, so don't worry about it. And it was, if you could get beyond that, I don't know if that brashness is the right word, his tell it like it is. You realize like, wow, this guy wants nothing more than for me to succeed and do my best.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I didn't know him too well, but like that's the relationship we had too. He was very direct. So if like you wrote a story on a top 10 and you didn't include Salisbury, he'd be like, hey, where were you on this one? You missed that. And you'd be like, whoa, all right. And kind of follow up with him. But you realize like, don't take it personally. He cares about his guys. He cares about the team. And he doesn't really care how you think about him. He just was trying to advocate for his players. Dylan, did you ever find it like what I always found surprising with Kevin or Coach Huber is he was at Yale, he was on this prep school scene, and he was pretty like brash and direct and maybe not super polished like you typically see at these schools. How did that work so well for him where he could coach at these like higher academic institutions with that style where he was just like, direct and not as polished?
Yeah, I think it was his baseball knowledge overall, and just his wisdom that he would share amongst the kids, in a different approach. Obviously, a lot of high school students, I think in prep school, they don't get that from a lot of faculty or a lot of coaches where, it's someone that is that straightforward and that honest at all times, no matter if you're on the field, no matter if he checked your grades and knew you were slacking off in a certain class. Like he was able to really connect with every single person, almost on campus, just to see, at the service, how many people, came out, and how many people he touched in certain ways, that goes unnoticed, that was mentioned a lot yesterday too, of a lot of the things that he did kind of behind closed doors, right? without people really knowing. He didn't want the limelight. And so the work that he put in as a coach, obviously as someone new to this environment, he really kind of put his head down and adapted really well to this environment. And like I said, the time he spent, as a player, as a coach before he got to Salisbury, obviously has an impact on that. And also just, he at the end of the day, he really is a family man. Obviously with his own family and friends, but we became an extension of that family very quickly. And he really embraced that. And kind of made that known to his players and his students.
Yeah, James, I talked to Yale coach Stuper, and he was saying it was just hilarious to like sit next to Coach Huber on the bench and just listen to his like baseball anecdotes and the way he talked about stuff. What was he like as a competitor? That like, did it get very serious, or was it always pretty loose with him? Like even on when there were big games that you guys were involved in.
Yeah, I always admired him for this. He was a competitor. He wanted his guys to go out and he wanted to win. And that could have been our first spring training game down in Florida, to a non-league game to playing the Western New England Baseball League playoffs. He wanted to win. There was no question about that. And our guys knew it, that persona, his personality, rubbed off on the guys. He's kind of like a bulldog, is a good way to describe him. But there was always the ability, the one-liners he offered. Like I couldn't do it justice. The things that he would say where it allowed all of us to know, like, man, coach is pretty ticked, right? He wanted something more out of us in that particular situation. But at the same time, what was so unique about it was the way in which he would say something, garnered a smirk or a laugh out of guys that it didn't like buckle everybody. It wasn't get this, I don't know, paralysis by analysis. Like guys were able to be like, yeah, all right, he's not happy. We can do better than that. Let's go do better than that. So, there's the stories, and you would see, the broken clipboard, or, maybe a punted bucket, but like he was competitive, but his ability to work it all in to allow guys, like, it is still a game. Like, let's have some fun. Like, we can crack some jokes, but let's do what we came here to do. We want to win.
And Dylan, when you think about Coach Huber, can you think of a story or like an anecdote where like, hey, that was classic Coach Huber, or is it given the team, like you say, he's getting angry, like, when that happens, or just competing, or anything that really makes you think like, oh yeah, that was classic Coach Huber?
Yeah. I mean, there's a story in particular. It was kind of more of a one-on-one interaction while I was a player. I was switch hitting at the time, and still kind of working through a lot of the early stages of switch hitting, and wanting to just kind of stick to my strong side. But he had stayed with me after one practice, and for about an hour, I'm pretty sure we missed dinner, but for about an hour, he had me throw in the baseball bat, into the field, for my release point. And I mean, he was letting me hear it, calling me soft, and, I'm out here doing this for you, and, kind of making me feel like, I'm doing this for you, and you're kind of, BSing a little bit, like, kind of, putting some, some effort to this. And, obviously I think I'm doing the best I can, but he was really trying to pull the best out of me and try and, hold me accountable, keep me disciplined to, what I was trying to achieve. And, when I was a player, he was always like that. And I knew that he cared, but, that was his way of getting through to me. And then, kind of when I came back as a coach, and seeing it from the other side, and hearing him talk to these kids, all I can do is really just laugh, because, I know how I took it as a player. As like, this guy is freaking, like, what the hell? Why is he talking to me like this? But I hear him do it, now, and it's like, those kids really, they understand it, from an early stage of meeting coach, and yeah, that hardcore mentality is what kind of really made me into the player I was through college. Finishing up through my high school career too.
James, how was he when he interacted with assistant coaches? Was he hard on his staff as well as hard as he was on players, or was there, a respect that he showed in front of players, or how did that play out?
No, I think he held us to the same accountability. He understood, I have two young daughters that Kevin has seen grow up. So he was always, and Dylan hit on it too. He was a family man. His family meant the world to him, and he understood the importance of us to spend time with our families. I can think of, my youngest daughter would have a dance recital, the past couple of years in May, and it was, not missing a game for it, but hey, Kev, you okay if I, bounce out of practice a little bit early to get to that? And he'd be like, absolutely, like, go ahead and do it. And so he was always great in, showing us, and I think our team too is like, hey, family's important. Like, that like hands down. But like, don't get me wrong. He challenged us at well. And it's funny, Dylan, as you were saying that, I remember one time early in Kev's tenure, we were playing a game towards the end of the season. And at that point we were heading into the playoffs. Actually, you know what? It might've been our senior game. So it might've been our last home game of the year before the playoffs. And we're up in a game. We won the game. And I can remember at third base, watching our runner left second. I watched the ball. Second baseman fielded it, made a diving play, bobbled it, and I thought the ball kicked away further than it had. So I sent him from second to score, and it didn't kick that far away. Second baseman got up, delivered the ball to home, nailed us at home at end of the inning. And I can remember Kevin being quite frustrated about it. And like we would at times, we come together at the end of the game, and Kev's addressing the guys, and win, yes. Did we play as well as we could have or should have? Probably not. And I remember, like, he turned to me and he was just like, so what happened out there on the call? Like, did you just not see the ball, or the ball get kicked away? And so same thing, holding me accountable. And it wasn't trying to call me out or embarrass me or anything like that. I think it was a show to the guys, like, hey, listen, we as coaches aren't immune to things. Like, we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to own it. And, that's what I said to Kev and the team right there. It's just like, I thought the ball kicked away further than it did. Like, it was a mistake. And so you had those two sides of him. Like, he again, like, he was going to hold you accountable and demand the best from you, but he was right there to support you and, allow the guys to see the same thing, that yes, hey, family's first and foremost. When games are going on, we're going to demand the best of you.
And Dylan, how did you stay connected to the program and to Coach Huber and to Salisbury after you graduated? Like, I assume did you play beyond prep school, or how did you?
So I went on to play at Central Connecticut State University for the next 4 years. And the connection, Huber had a really good connection with the assistant coach who was the pitching coach, or who still is, Pat Hall at CCSU. And I didn't realize how close they were until after I graduated Central, but I knew there was a connection there. And so a little bit of a connection through Coach Hall at CCSU, because they were very close. And then, Huber would always kind of reach out, maybe say he would, the baseball team usually did Christmas cards. So he would send one to me, through text. He would reach out to me here and there every now and then. And then, kind of after I graduated, in May of 22, in July, he had reached out to me asking, like, what do you think? I think Mr. Scoville, who was one of the assistant coaches at the time, he had left and he was like, oh, having a young guy on the staff would be great. But I just wasn't ready to get back to campus yet. So I stayed home, and then following, I think, March of 2023, reached out again, a little bit more, persistent, and he got me to come up and to visit to see if I wanted to do it. And when I came up, all it was is a simple 30-minute car ride with him to be like, I knew he really wanted me there. And I thought it would be just awesome to coach with him, to get back to the school as well. But he's probably the best coach I've ever had. And so the thought of coaching beside him was really what brought me back. And so he always stays connected here and there. And so it was pretty easy to stay in contact with him, and of course stay connected to Salisbury. It's a really special place here.
Yeah, it seems like it. And, just the outpouring of reaction to this and people who shared thoughts about Coach Huber. Obviously he touched so many people in the community, and he's and all across baseball too. Like you said, he's got a lot of different stops where people know of him or met him and had really fun stories to tell about it. James, we had started kind of previewing the prep season. It's kind of a dead time here in the winter where we're looking ahead to 2026. And Salisbury, obviously, like, he had the program in great shape. It's a lot of really talented players on the team, a lot of D1 prospects and college committed players. But obviously this was such a shocking and unexpected thing to happen. So where does it go from here? Like, what has the last month been like? What is it as you kind of look ahead now to 2026?
Yeah, it's been hard. I mean, there's no question about that. Obviously, the shock of everything going on, and Kevin was always recruiting. We had started some morning workouts back in early October. Pitchers had throwing plans. Guys are up early hitting together, in the evenings hitting together. Like he, in a way, yes, so difficult when you lose a leader and a figure like Kevin. But very much along the lines of what Dylan is saying, what he had ingrained in the guys, the work ethic, the drive. But I tell you what's really cool, and we saw it yesterday too, is, I mean, you get these alums, whether you want to call them Kev's guys or Hube's guys, like whether, you were a guy here for 5 or 6 years, or you're a guy here new that hasn't played an inning yet. Like, you were one of Kev's guys. And what you saw was everyone kind of, coming, you really just that, guys coming together, bonding together even more, and, ready to kind of hit this thing full speed. When it happened, I think the ability that everybody was together was great. The separation for holiday break was good. And then coming back together, and I don't want to speak for Dylan, but I know we've talked about it. You get this sense is like, these guys are ready to go. They're ready to go for Kevin. They're ready to go for themselves. They're ready to go for the guys that came before them. But and maybe more so to answer your question, I think it's just kind of a simple word, but something real meaningful for us all year is just going to be this idea of togetherness. It's yes, you've got, Dylan and I there, and we've been here. We've got a new coach on the staff. You've got, Coach Estes, who's our pitching coach, who's, 90 years old. He's been around forever and loves the game. And, the guys continuing to work together, that's going to be most important. And I think, when you talk about, this season, that's going to be a big piece of who and what we are is doing it for each other. Yes, doing it for Kevin, but as Dylan said, like, Kevin was a very selfless person. Like, he didn't want any recognition. And, he's probably up there right now being like, why are they doing this podcast on me? Like, I don't want any of that. And, what we want is, like, Kevin's an important part of this, but most importantly, Kevin would want that togetherness, our guys continuing to be there and support one another. And I think that continues over whoever ends up taking over the program, the recruits that will that we'll look and we'll talk to, right, is that's, going to be a big sell is, listen, this is a family. And, there's going to be no one in particular guy that's going to do it all. Like we're going to be together and, through thick and thin, through good and bad, like we're going to demand the best, exactly like Kevin would, and look to do what's best for, yes, Kevin, but do what's best for the program. And that's just moving forward together.
Yeah, knowing him, as I did, I think that's what he would want. Not so much, guys maximizing their, winning for him, but, winning for themselves because, he was recruiting guys that he wanted to go off and play Division I college. He wouldn't want the program to take a step back. Dylan, like when you take a job like this, obviously you're saying like, I have the baseball pedigree, I went off, I played Division I college. There's something that I can offer these guys. Has it tested your leadership in a different way now as you're probably playing more like therapist here over the last month and, heading into the season?
Yeah. I mean, I think, this time was going to come, eventually where, Kev was always kind of like, when you get it, when I'm done with this program, he would make comments here and there, and I could never tell if he was serious or not, but, he would make those comments. But yeah, I mean, these guys, will definitely lean into me a little bit and me for them as well. But yeah, I think my experience has definitely helped my, coaching ability, over the past couple of years as well to just, one, connect with the guys for them to, instill a lot of trust in me to, guide them in whatever it is. And that's what, the next few months will be as well. Just kind of, keeping up with everybody on the team and what they were working on, maybe directly with Coach Huber and carrying that on. I think one big thing about Huber was that he did, really build a foundation for Salisbury baseball that a lot of our players and even, recruits understand, what's important to our team, what's important to, Salisbury, and connecting those two. And, I have a lot of confidence in myself and Simbo and the others, part of our coaching staff to really carry that on and hold up that foundation. Obviously with the help of the kids, but, everybody's kind of on that same page. And, it's tough times right now, obviously in the first month of this happening, but, I do have a lot of confidence in us, upholding that legacy, continuing that foundation, and really just, leaving it all out there and focusing on this season right now. That's all that matters is this season. So,
Yeah. And I do appreciate that you guys are taking the time to do this. I know it is fresh. And before I do wrap up, though, I want to give you guys a chance if there's anything so there's so many people in the baseball community who have reached out and shared thoughts about Kevin and asked about what they can do. I know there's a GoFundMe that benefits his family. Is there anything, before we go that, if there are people who want to help in some way, is there anything you guys would suggest from the Salisbury end?
that's a good question. I think the GoFundMe is a big piece,
Yeah.
especially for the family. There's been a ton of support on campus, off campus for, Kevin's family. And I really think that's just the biggest thing. On my side, it's tough for me to say, at least. I know there's already been so much done for him and his family. I mean, I think the sheer amount of people that came back yesterday was good for the, emotional piece of it for a lot of people. And, sometimes that's, all you can, all some people need is just that emotional support through, seeing old friends, old family, all that kind of stuff. So, that's what I can say for that piece.
Yeah, and it's so nice for his kids to be able to see that impact too. That's important too. But sorry, James, you wanted to say something?
No, I don't have a whole lot to add. And Dylan's right is, the outpouring of love and support that has come from, yes, the Salisbury community, but our baseball community, coaches in our league reaching out, is meaningful to the family, to the school, to certainly our program. And that's all I was really going to say. Kev would probably say, go watch a baseball game.
Yeah.
Well, I do appreciate you guys taking the time to honor him. He made such a big impact. I thought it was important to tell a few stories about him, and I thought you guys did a really nice job with that. So thank you so much for taking the time. And if there's anything you need, feel free to reach out.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay. Well, thank you to James Simboli and Dylan Sanchez for taking the time to share their thoughts on Kevin Huber. Rate, review, subscribe to the podcast on your preferred platform. Thanks to our producer, David Yaz. The Base Path Podcast is a Siemens Media production.